only recourse really is this civil mechanism, because of, the state's not imposing that on any religion, but it's how each faith tradition is making determinations about what is required to stay faithfully in that tradition.
So I guess one of my questions is, do we just keep adding more and more adjectives to these words to try to describe to each other what we mean, or can we come up with new vocabulary that will capture the essence of this experience? So if a gay committed relationship has a certain agenda in society, and society has a stake in that gay committed relationship, what would that look like? And what word would they use? And why go to civil marriage versus religious marriage? I mean, so another question I have that I'd love your guys' feedback on is why has marriage, the word marriage, become so dang important if civil rights is the issue? And nobody in this room, I hope, can ever question the issue of civil rights for gay and lesbian and heterosexual people or anybody in between, transgendered, everybody. Nobody's going to question that. So how can we protect civil rights? And why has the word marriage become this kingpin, queenpin, if you will, of the conversation?
Out of curiosity, how do you think people would react if they were to say, come for the word? I mean, I guess civil union is kind of the idea, but like, I don't know, a different word. Flafluga.
That's it. Right there. Can you smell it?
You can see the formal invitations now.
Do you mind flafluga? Anyway, so say camp for the word, it doesn't matter what it is, it could be flafluga. And essentially use that word to mean everything that marriage by the state would mean, whether that's like signing the papers or living together for 5 or 7 years or whatever that is. Essentially that would mean civil marriage. And then marriage would mean strictly the religious ceremony that wouldn't confer on you tax benefits or whatever. That would, you have to get a flafluga for that.
I think that. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Like, do you think people would see that as like, oh, but it's not marriage, or would they be like, wait, it is?
I think there would be profound political difficulties in getting that, even if you had an easier name than that. But I do think it goes to the heart of your question, why marriage has become such a prize in this debate. And because I think that any civil institution that's exclusive, that says some people can enter and other people can't, creates the inequality problem that makes it a civil rights issue. If marriage were abolished and there were some purely civil partnership, Flafluga or otherwise, that any couples could enter regardless of sex or gender, then you'd achieve equality. But I do think that there would be a political outcry if marriage no longer had civil recognition. I mean, I think marriage, is often cited as the core of our society. There's all kinds of language you can find in purely civil authorities that seem to invest marriage with this importance. So I just don't see a legislature or even a court abolishing marriage, even though that was one of the questions posed by the California Supreme Court during the Roe.
Well, and part of what I think about this is, and I think once upon a time I probably would have been just fine. I was thrilled when Vermont was the first to come up with civil unions. I thought that was fabulous, and I would have been totally happy with that. And I've reached a point where it's not okay. I mean, what comes to mind is separate but equal, and what's behind that? What's the intentionality of it? So why are we creating this new phrase, flafluga? I did better in Spanish than in this new language. But what's the rationale, right? So it is as like, no, this is sacred. This is ours. You can't have it. But why? And so it feels a bit like a red herring. And so why have these parallel paths with two different names if they're truly fully equal?
Because we don't mean the same thing by the words.
So then what does it goes back to the original
so
question.
here's what
So
we'll
what
do.
does it mean, Gary?
We'll give everybody else marriage. We'll give the civil world marriage, and let the religious traditions keep the word flafluga.
No. Religious traditions keep marriage. Everyone else has a flafluga.
No, because then we take away a word that's already being used. I think that would be a violation of what people are accustomed to. So right now you can be married. You can be married 7 times. That goes against my flafluga. So we'll recover. We'll get a different word because I pity a society that doesn't know what words mean anymore. I'm sorry. I feel strongly
But for
about it.
example, in the California case, which the voters did overturn in Proposition 8, the justices suggested that we didn't say for interracial couples, we're going to create something called interracial marriage. We, once it was deemed to be a civil rights violation to prohibit such couples from marriage, they just got to marry. And so the question, so there is a concern that separate but equal is
It's never really equal. Well, and it's, you know, as we were talking about earlier, there have been civil marriages among heterosexual couples forever. So this isn't a new concept. So no one was freaking out about some kind of attack on marriage because there were all these straight people getting civil marriages rather than religious-based marriages. So why is it only when the queer community is seeking access to these rights does it become a threat to marriage? Because I take your point, Gary, about marriage has become more trivialized in our culture. And, you know, when you see divorce rates at 50% in heterosexual couples, you know, that's a sign to some extent of a crisis, right? There's something going on there, should be examined. I also think that people stay in relationships that are unhealthy and that can be damaging to them too. And so I'm in favor of divorce as a concept. But the fact that we have divorce rates at this high is problematic. So that's where I go. So why is there not an outcry about all these straight people in civil marriages? Right? It wasn't a threat to marriage.
I think that's the single most significant question, actually, because if we can understand why this fear or hate or whatever it is that comes up with this particular issue in our society, my heart breaks for especially gay people in California. I just can't even imagine what it'd be like to have it legalized and then it's like, are you kidding me? This is not how human beings live. So we got to figure out this factor, this unknown that we could all speculate about that makes us so reactive to this experience that is called gay. It's huge.
John? So I find it very, I agree with your point, Father Gary, about the meaning of words and how marriage is, in some senses, being valued, and now we're finding this new value system in the word marriage. But I have sort of a twofold question. One's a simple yes, no, the other is more expounding. Do each of you individually think that homosexuals should be allowed access to the civil arena of marriage, and then just allow their own religious affiliation or not ordain that? And then I guess the second question is, where do you see it going from here? How far into the future do you see homosexual people gaining that?
I think in my opening comments, I very
Right.
much took that position that I think that we should have access to marriage. I don't think that the state, the federal government should impose those restrictions, or not restrictions, but impose that on any faith tradition. I think that there are going to be advocates in those faith traditions